Hi and welcome to today's class. It is the 15th of May and this is class number 60. So today's class is going to focus on angles. Most of this will be revision from primary school, but still I would like you to take down the following keywords in your copy. So we have an acute angle, an obtuse angle, reflex angle, straight angle, right angle, and an ordinary angle. So using the terminology we had yesterday, an angle is made up of two rays from the same initial point. Remember, a ray is like a half line. It starts at a point and it goes in one direction. So there's one ray, here's a second ray, and there is my angle. So if I think of this first arm or ray as the initial side, we can then look at the second one as our terminal side. So where do we start? Our initial side to our terminal side. When you measure the angle between them, that becomes the size of our angle. So the measure of the angle is the amount of rotation, so how far we rotate, required to rotate from the initial side to that terminal side. So an angle is measured in degrees, and the symbol is this little zero here, similar to how we measure temperature in degrees Celsius or degrees Fahrenheit. However, here they're just degrees as in our angles. So this angle here measures 54 degrees, and that little circle means degrees. So what is the size of this angle? So it doesn't tell us the size, and we never assume in maths. We'll never go, it looks like, okay? That's an estimation or a guess. We want to figure out what size is this angle. And this angle is 90 degrees. And the reason I can say that for sure is because of the little symbol. So they gave us a little box in here, and this little box basically means right angles. You might also see it written as like a little L, or they might write in 90 degrees. So watch out for things that tell us the size of the angle without telling us the size of the angle. So here we have an angle. Can you tell what size this is? So this is 180 degrees. It's half a turn, or it's also known as a straight angle. So this angle here is a full rotation or full turn, and it is 360 degrees. So these are really important ones to use, and we'll be using these in lots of different ways over the next 5 years. So here are some angles, and all of these angles are acute angles. And they're acute because all of them measure less than 90 degrees. So 48 degrees, 28 degrees, 37 degrees, 72 degrees, 63 degrees, and 49 degrees. So an acute angle measures less than 90 degrees. Here we have what are known as obtuse angles. So obtuse angles are angles that measure between 90 degrees and 180. So they are bigger than a right angle, but they are smaller than a straight angle. So we can see all of our angles here are bigger than 90 degrees, but less than 180 degrees. And this group of angles are called reflex angles. And reflex angles are bigger than 180 degrees, but they are less than 360 degrees. So here's a little summary that you can take down in your copies. Pause the video if you need to. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is something that doesn't appear a lot, but we'll touch on it just in case. An ordinary angle is any angle that is either acute or obtuse. So when we draw an angle, there are actually two angles that we could measure. There's kind of the one that's inside the angle and outside the angle. Why we decide one is inside and one is outside is because there's one that's usually smaller than the other. That smaller angle is referred to as the ordinary angle. That's the one highlighted in green here, and it's usually the one we think of as inside, and it will always be less than 180 degrees. Now let's talk about naming angles. Yesterday we talked about naming points and using a capital letter for each. Then we talked about naming lines. We can name them either by the 2 points that exist on the line or by a lowercase letter like L, M, or N. So here we have another symbol. Again, I'm super lazy. I need to tell somebody that it's an angle, but I don't want a right angle. So instead I use this symbol here, which says angle. Oh, didn't highlight for me. So it uses this symbol here for an angle. So here's my little angle. It's highlighted in kind of a orangey color. And how we could name this, and there are 3 ways. It could be named angle AOB, so going from A to O to B. So that is how it will be drawn. Or it could be called angle BOA, because that's another way I could draw it. I go from B to O and then to A. So that's the second thing we could name it. The third way we could name it is simply by the letter that is at the point of the angle. And that point of the angle has a special name, and it's called the vertex. So vertex is singular and vertices is plural. So we could just name it by that one letter. So this is kind of like using your first name and then your surname, or sometimes you use your surname then your first name, or sometimes I just use your first name. Now, these 3 ways are all valid. However, go back to the name example. When would it not be good for me just to use a first name and not a combined first and second name? And that would be if we had lots of students that had the same first name. So like in our class, let's say we had 3 Anns and I went Anne, nobody would know who I was talking about, so I'd use their surname. The same rules apply when we're doing and when we're naming our angles. The letter O is lovely and easy, but if there was a few angles at O, we wouldn't know which one we're talking about. So using the 3 letters instead would make a lot more sense. Now, one question that usually comes up here is, can I say that this is angle OAB? And that is incorrect, because if you start at O and you go to A and you come to B, oh, that is definitely not B. Let me try again. So you go from O to A and then to B, you're actually drawing a different angle. You're drawing this angle here. So it's the different angle. So order is very important. Notice that the letter O is in the middle of all 3 ways to name that angle. So that O must be in the middle, and O is where the point or the vertex of the angle is. So I'm going to talk a little bit about angles and where we have seen where you've seen them since probably a very young age, and that is on the clock. And angles in a full circle will add up to 360 degrees, and that can be a really bizarre number for us given that a lot of our work is done in what's called the metric system. So for example, 1 meter, and then we have a kilometers, which is a kilometer, which is 1,000 meters. Centimeters, so that's 100 centimeters are in a meter, and so on. So when we have something like 360 degrees, it may feel like a very bizarre number. So when the hands on a clock move from one position to another, it has made an angle. When the hand of the clock starts at 12 and does a complete turn, it's done 1 complete revolution, and that is 360 degrees. So each part of that 360, each degree, if you think about it in terms of our clocks, well, 360 is actually divisible by 12. Okay, so it's a multiple of 12. And the Babylonians, who existed between 2000 and 1000 BC, they loved the number 60 because it had so many factors, and they also love multiples of 60. And that's why we think about 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. We also, well, it's not just the number 60, it really came from 6. And when we talk about the 6, we can see it in like 24 hours, and so on. So a lot of what we have in this section, this idea of base 6. So what I'll do is I'll share a little video to give you a bit more background on that idea of base 6, so counting in sixes, rather than our system, which is a decimal system, okay? Deci meaning 10. We do 10 because we have 10 fingers, but there's a lovely little video that shows why they used 6. So before we finish, I'd like you to do a little bit of a quiz. If you need to pause the video at each one, do. I want you to answer the following question. What type of angle is this? It is obtuse. What type of angle is this? It is acute. What type of angle is this? It is obtuse. So notice that it's where this little half, well, it's not even a half circle, where this little arc is drawn, that's the angle they're talking about. Remember, every time we draw an angle, there are two. We have the ordinary one, that one that's less than 180, and then a reflex one. But they'll always indicate which one they're talking about. What type of angle is this? It is reflex. What size angle is this? Now, I know we can't measure it and we haven't done anything about measuring it, but can you estimate based off what you know what you think it is? So let's work it through. Pause it, guess it, and then we'll work it through. So it can't be this one and it can't be this one because 170 degrees, that is obtuse and this is not an obtuse. 315, that would mean it's reflex and this is not reflex. So 20 degrees versus 45. Now what I would do is say, well, look, I've got my pen. If I continued here, that would be a right angle and it's about half a right angle. A right angle is 90 degrees, so half of that, it would be 54. Sorry, 45. Don't know where I got my 54. 45 degrees. If you said 20, you were close, but not correct. So what size angle do you think this is? Again, using the same logic. Pause it if you need to. It's 170 degrees. So it's nearly a straight line, but not quite. This angle here, take a look, see what you think. So it's 100 degrees. It's just over a right angle. So this angle here. So correct answer is 15 degrees. So what size do you think this angle is? And it's 150 degrees. What size is this angle? And it's 90 degrees. And this angle should hopefully be good for everyone. Do you think it's 0 degrees? Look where it is. I'm going to follow it through. Look, it's this whole rotation. 0 degrees. It's 360 degrees. So this one, what size is this angle? And that's 270 degrees. This angle here, do you think it is reflex, acute, or obtuse? It is reflex. And the final question, do you think that this is reflex? Is it obtuse or is it acute? It is acute. Well done.